Hello, and welcome to another edition of the show that I, your host, David Woodruff, lovingly call the Woodruff Report, the return episode. We've been gone for so long, I haven't been able to talk. Listeners have not been able to hear from me. I feel a little bit like LeBron James. So, I'm not going to say that I know what it felt like for LeBron James when he went back to Cleveland from Miami, but at the same time, I'm not going to say that I know what LeBron felt like when he made The Decision Part 2. So, I've been gone for a long time, as all of you probably know, but this podcast is going to get back to the way it was. It'll become more frequent. The episodes will come at you at least weekly. I'm going to probably start recording in a manner where a big event happens. For example, the college football playoff final this Monday between Georgia and Alabama will happen, and I'll record a podcast after that. So they'll be more centered on one issue. But I will also do some weekly roundups to talk about all the latest in sports. Today I just want to touch on two things that I am particularly interested in talking about. The first is the 49ers, in particular, the 49ers post Jimmy G. I think the 49ers should start measuring time in how they do before Christ, after Christ, BC, AC. I think they should do that. So BJ before Jimmy and AJ after Jimmy, because that's how much of a seismic impact he had on the team. So I want to talk about the 49ers, and I also want to talk about phenomena or a weird scheduling thing that the Barclays Premier League does, and that is the Boxing Day fixtures, all the games that happen around the holiday season, and what the effect will be on the players, and how a change that could be made to better the Premier League. So 49ers Premier League, the return edition of the Woodruff Report. I hope you all enjoy it, and I know I'm going to enjoy finally getting back into the groove of podcasting again. So this episode begins in 3, 2, 1. Let's start with the 49ers. And if you are a loyal listener of this podcast, or if you're just someone who listens every now and again, you may know that I'm a very outspoken critic when it comes to the topic of the 49ers. Their owner, Jed York, is not on my list, and previous general manager Trent Baalke was a disgrace and rightly was relieved of his duties. But this season has been crazy. It's been like a seesaw. There was the terrible at the beginning of the season to now, week 16, sitting watching that debacle against the Philadelphia Eagles. I never would have expected to be sitting here with the hope that I have for next season as a 49ers fan, because the beginning of the season, it just looked like more of what we had seen the previous 2 years, more of the inept Jim Tom Sula-like decisions, more players who are too young or just terrible. It was, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was a dumpster fire. And again, we started the season with Brian Hoyer. I actually didn't think that he should have lost the job to C.J. Beathard, but he was not winning games. And so the switch to Beathard was, I think it was a little early, but again, same results. The losing continued, and the team just looked terrible. The offense looked inept on the field. Even with some of the new weapons that surrounded C.J. Beathard, he did not look like he should have been out there that early. I actually think he did a pretty good job. I'm not a super big hater on Beathard. I think that he did pretty well based on the circumstances that he was cast into. The skill positions, obviously not great. I mean, he was throwing to Trent Taylor. O-line that was weak. Definitely a below-average O-line, and some injuries all along the offense. And then him being, of course, a first-year quarterback, new system, new everything. Kyle Shanahan runs a pretty complicated offense, lots of motion, lots of moving parts. So to throw in a rookie quarterback, and again, C.J. Beathard was sort of drafted as a project. He wasn't a finished like Mitchell Trubisky, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Jared Goff kind of pick coming out of college. He was someone where, okay, we're not going to get results immediately, but we're going to try to develop him to be a backup, maybe a spot starter, or maybe he'll surprise all of us and be a very good player. But he ended up being exactly what he was not drafted to be, which was just a in from day one starter. Here's the playbook. Here are the keys to the car. Good luck. Go and do it. And so when he was put in that situation, obviously he was going to not do so well. And again, when you watch Beathard, you just notice how it's sort of like when you watch Beathard, you see what you're used to, or what is missing in him that exists in so many other quarterbacks. His footwork is just very slow in the pocket. It sort of looks like he's running through mud or molasses when he's in the pocket. He's not really light on his feet. And then the arm strength, he just can't really throw the ball outside the hashes very well. Lots of wobbly passes. The ball takes a long time to get over there, and that's why we saw so many incompletions, so many just... It would often just be run to Carlos Hyde for 2 yards, run to Carlos Hyde for 2 yards, play action or pass play to C.J. Beathard, incompletion on an underneath route, and then punt with Bradley Pinion. That was a lot of the Niners' early season. That was what passed as offense. But, again, that being said, I don't think Beathard was as bad as some people were saying he was. I mean, obviously the performances weren't very good, but you have to look at the circumstances he was put in, as I stated before. So the whole Hoyer-Beathard thing, the Niners are underperforming. We're looking at a terrible season. We do beat the Giants, but other than that, we're sitting at 1-10, and it's just like, okay, this is a dumpster fire. Let's try to get the number one pick. That's what we're aiming for at this point. I want the number one pick. Come on, Browns, win a game. By the way, they did not. Browns went 0-16, second time since the AFL-NFL merger that a team has gone 0-16. Quick shout out to the Browns. But we're sitting at 1-10. Things are just not looking good. And again, this sort of passes over some of the performances. I mean, to be honest, we were one of the best 1-10 teams I'd ever seen. We had that run of stretches where we went to overtime twice in a row. We were losing games by 1 point. We were playing teams tough, and sort of the streak that led up to then, we got crushed by the Cowboys and then Eagles. But up to then, we'd been playing pretty good football. But then the magical Jimmy G trade. Woo, 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 woo. We trade the Patriots. We get Jimmy G. They get a second-round pick. We'll get into the whole Patriots thing later because reports have surfaced just today about potential like infighting and sort of jealousy and weird like picking of sides in the Patriots organization, which is always seen as such a strong organization. Maybe some cracks and maybe some hope for not only the AFC but the whole NFL. But we'll get to that later. So Niners give a second-round pick, get Jimmy G in return, and he is way better than advertised. Starting with a sort of shaky performance against the Bears, where 5 field goals from Robbie Gould, who played great this year, propelled us to a 15-14 win against a lowly Bears team away from home. But still, a win's a win, and you saw throws where you were like, okay, this guy is okay. Like this could be good. He's throwing the ball into tight windows. After watching C.J. Beathard for the previous few games, you see like the ball zipping and you're like, whoa, because you're used to kind of these wobbly ducks thrown by Beathard outside the numbers, and then Jimmy G's stepping up in the pocket, setting his feet and just rifling these throws. He has a very strong arm. He's putting the ball in tight windows. Again, the only flaw that I really identified when watching Jimmy G play is sometimes he trusts that cannon so much that he'll try to fit the ball into like a 3-foot little tiny window and it'll get intercepted or deflected or knocked down or bad things will happen. But more often than not, he's fitting the ball in, and he made everyone around him look so much better. I mean, Jimmy G's play made up for all the ineptness kind of around him on the offense. That patchwork O-line suddenly was given Jimmy G enough time to pick apart a defense. Like Trent Taylor became actually good. Trent Taylor was pathetic at the beginning of the season. All he would do was he'd get crushed, basically. He'd run like a little in route and just get annihilated by some linebacker. And it was like, I'd cringe watching the games because I'm like, oh no, Trent Taylor is about to get pounded again. He also returned punts and he would get annihilated all season. But I mean, Trent Taylor was looking like a viable Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman slot receiver, running great routes, catching the ball in traffic, breaking some tackles, showing that quickness. He really looked like a Patriots type of slot receiver playing under Jimmy G. I mean, this is like peak Bill Belichick grabbing some like small, undersized wide receiver in round 5 and him becoming a great slot receiver. So, I mean, Trent Taylor obviously has a long way to go before he's up to Edelman, but he looked good, and that is because he was getting good quarterback play from Jimmy G. Again, Marquise Goodwin, he was sort of one-dimensional previously in his NFL career. He was just I'm super fast, I'm just going to run deep kind of guy. And he's become someone who, again, he is mostly a deep threat, but he's started to run routes. And he, like, when I played fantasy football before the Jimmy G trade, I would stay away from the Niners entirely. But Marquise Goodwin became, like, a viable fantasy starter because Jimmy G would get him the ball, he'd get good completions, he'd run deep, run that deep comeback, run that deep in. Defenses were so scared of that speed that they'd bail, and he'd be able to kind of settle in that zone between the backers and the safeties and secondary. And he became a big weapon for the Niners. So Marquise Goodwin, Trent Taylor were able to elevate their play. Carlos Hyde came on. He really proved this year that he not only can run the ball, but he can also catch the ball out of the backfield and make some moves, and he's got good hands out of the backfield. And he cemented his status as a very good running back in the National Football League again. Matt Breida came on, especially under Jimmy G. He became a very good kind of change of pace back. And the whole offense just looked much better when Jimmy G came in, and they never lost again. The Niners went undefeated with Jimmy G as the starter, and honestly, it gave the fan base, and myself included, a lot of hope. And I think next year the Rams are obviously very good, but if Jimmy G keeps playing the way that he's playing, and we can maybe grab some offensive linemen and wide receivers and maybe a few DBs, those are our needs. I think especially wide receivers. I'd like some playmakers for Jimmy G to throw to. This team can definitely make a run at the playoffs, maybe not winning the division, but definitely wild card. So some expectations for them next year. A brief side note, a lot of I've heard 49er fans want to draft Saquon Barkley. Obviously, we've sort of fallen out of the range of drafting Saquon. He is definitely probably going to be gone within the first 5 picks. Niners are sitting at around the 10th pick, I think. I believe 10th pick. Don't quote me on that. I do not have it in front of me. But the Niners are 10th pick. Saquon will probably be gone. But we do not need Saquon. Carlos Hyde is a very good back, and I think he gets overlooked even by his own fans. He can pound between the tackles. He's got speed on the outside. He's proven that he can catch the ball. Why draft another running back? I mean, I think running back is literally the only, besides quarterback, running back is the only thing that the Niners are good. Like, we do not need another running back on the offensive side of the ball. Carlos Hyde, Matt Breida, who really came on, that is good. We do not need anything else. Now, wide receivers, Pierre Garçon will come back from injury. He was on IR. Marquise Goodwin and Trent Taylor. If we can get a game-changing wide receiver, like maybe a Jarvis Landry, he'll be available for free agency. Maybe an Allen Robinson, another speedster, the Jacksonville guy who tore his ACL. He was out all season, so maybe his value will be a little less than it would be if he'd played a whole season. These guys can really be difference makers and give Jimmy G some more threat on the outside. But no Saquon. We don't need Saquon. Saquon can go chill with the Browns or something and do nothing, where it seems like top 5 picks go to die in the wasteland that is Cleveland. So that's sort of my take on the 49ers season. It was bad. It was bad BJ before Jimmy. AJ after Jimmy, these guys are looking like a viable playoff team that can possibly make a run. And by the way, how great would a Tom Brady versus Jimmy G Super Bowl be? New versus old, the guy who was supposed to come in and take Brady's spot, maybe beating him on the big stage. How great would that be? I talked about this briefly previously, but I want to touch on it again. Reports from ESPN came out today that there was some controversy in the Patriots' whole organization between the owner, Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, the head coach, and Tom Brady. So apparently, Bill Belichick really didn't want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, but Robert Kraft, who is very tight, very good friends with Tom Brady, told Belichick, you have to trade this guy, because Belichick is known as a next guy up kind of guy. He was going to move on from Brady. Brady's getting old. He's in his 40s. Jimmy G is the future. Belichick wanted to put Garoppolo in there because he believes he's the future. But again, Brady and Kraft are very tight. Kraft was like, excuse me, no, you're not just going to get rid of the greatest quarterback of all time. Definitely in Kraft's eyes, Brady is the best quarterback of all time, and in many people's eyes, he's the greatest of all time. You're not going to get rid of this guy for Jimmy G. Trade Jimmy G. I don't want Tom to feel like there's pressure or that his job is just going to be taken shortly. Trade Jimmy G. And so Bill Belichick traded him. These are all according to the reports. Again, this will be taken by the media, and they'll go psycho, of course. There'll be whole reports about like Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft hating each other. There's a huge they're mortal enemies, of course, when ESPN and the media gets a hold of this. But everyone needs to calm down. But again, these reports wouldn't be surfacing if there wasn't a little bit of tension, at least tension, within the Patriots organization. I feel I should say that the Patriots organization has denied all claims of tension within the organization, saying that everything is fine and we stand united, quote. But interesting side note that has come up today with ESPN reports of tension in the Patriots locker room revolving around the whole Jimmy G thing. And it probably would be a little embarrassing if you were part of the Patriots organization to see that you let go this obviously elite quarterback for a second-round pick, and the Niners are now flourishing from a 1-10 team to a possible playoff team next year, and all you got was a second-round pick for him, when in today's NFL, with the quarterback position being so coveted, teams will literally give an arm and a leg to get a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo. So, Niners season, Jimmy G, great. Hope for next year, but still some holes on that roster that need to be filled through free agency and the draft. Finally, I'd like to talk about what the British commentators in the English Premier League call the festive season. Basically, in the Premier League, there are a ton of games sort of around the Christmas area. There are like 2 times a week, a Wednesday game and a Saturday game. And there's also the FA Cup and the English League Cup, which is weirdly called the Carabao Cup. Don't know how that happened. Don't ask me. But all these games are occurring at the same time. So teams are playing 2-3 games a week. And top teams in the Premier League, such as Man United, Chelsea, they're playing definitely 3 games a week because they're still a participant in all these competitions because they play at such a high level. So managers complain about the festive period all the time. They say it's too many games. The players are going to get hurt. This is impossible. Injuries are going to occur just based on overuse. And from what I've seen, this seems to be pretty true. I have this app on my phone called the 433 app. Huge shout out 433 app. If anybody is out there listening to this, please get the 433 app. It's one of my favorites. It's a terrific app. And side note, I got that app when it was very young, and it was just a newborn app on the App Store. And anyway, I'm getting nostalgic here. Apologies, but get the 433 app. Anyway, so I check all my soccer scores on the 433 app, and these teams are playing 3 times a week, and I'm like, wait a minute, didn't Liverpool just play the other day? Manchester United's playing again. I thought they played literally yesterday. And as a soccer player myself, I know that 2 games in 2 days is nearly impossible. I mean, soccer seems like a non-physical sport, but you take a battering, and the knocks, as they're called, the little like brief injuries, like a bruised foot or something, those hurt because you have little protection when you're playing soccer. I mean, aside from shin guards, that's the only protection that you have, and no one ever kicks the shin guards, of course. If you wore no shin guards, you'd get a nice cleat to the shin, but as long as you wear shin guards, the soccer gods are like, okay, kick him literally anywhere except the shin guards. But this festive period is too much, and I think that things need to be changed because the Premier League is sort of the only league that has this kind of crazy festive period. The Bundesliga, La Liga are all off right now. None of the teams are playing. It's a long break. But the Premier League teams are playing 3 times a week, and it's like, why is this happening? Why do we have to play 3 times a week? And over in Germany and Spain, the teams aren't playing at all. So I think I'd like to offer a little bit of solution, and it's pretty simple. And it is that you just kind of space the games out a little bit more, because at the beginning of the season, teams are reliably playing once a week. So why not maybe intersperse a few 2 times a week? Or instead of having an FA Cup weekend where no Premier League games are played, only FA Cup games are played, why don't you have it be a FA Cup midweek or something where all the FA Cup games occur on a Wednesday and you still can play your usual game at the end of the week. That way it would take some of the strain off the players going into this festive period, and teams would be able to be rested. Star players would be rested. I mean, it's in the best interest of the league to keep the star players healthy, and star players are going to be played every week by the manager because the Barclays Premier League is just so competitive. So if these guys are taking knocks and getting injured and not playing, this is not good for anybody. It's not good for the teams, it's not good for the networks, it's not good for the league as a whole. I suppose it's actually good for the opposing teams because they don't have to play like a Kevin De Bruyne, he's injured or something. But other than that, and that's a big stretch, this is not good for anybody. So spread the games out a little bit more, and let's not have this hectic festive period. Again, it's driven all by television. Is really, there's not really much going on. So television wants to schedule these games, make some bank, and again, the league is often at the mercy of television because television is such a large portion of the revenue. So I talked about 2 things on this, the return episode of the Woodruff Report. I talked about the 49ers, BJ and AJ, and then I talked about the festive period and a change that should be made in the best interest of everybody to keep players healthy, to keep star players trotting out every week so the league can flaunt them. And yeah, just a little alteration that can make an already great league even greater. So again, thank you for listening. It's great to get back into the groove. Obviously, I'm a little rusty on my podcasting skills. I'll need to work out the kinks, but I will be coming at you more reliably. The break is over. I feel like LeBron James. Go Warriors, by the way. But again, thank you for listening to this podcast. I'll see you in a few days or definitely by the end of the week. This is the Woodruff Report. I am your host, David Woodruff. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic week. And please tune in again.